Hello, Bremer County and all of Iowa. This is Shawn and Emily coming to you to have our Deciding Iowa discussion, where we'll give an update about the legislative actions and consider the impacts locally and for all of Iowa.
Hi, I'm Dr. Shawn. I'm a cancer scientist, biochem prof, school board member, and former House District 57 candidate.
And I'm Dr. Emily Bavers. I'm an obstetrician gynecologist, mother of 3, and a reproductive freedom advocate.
Well, there are a number of bills that came up for consideration this week, Emily. Any that caught your attention?
You know, I'm a bit perplexed by the legislature passing a bill mandating gen ed requirements at the Regents universities. I find this to be terribly meddlesome, and it's really hard to understand what the legislature thinks they know that people who actually work in education don't know. House File 401 codifies the general education requirements at the Regents universities, and my initial perusal is that the requirements are not onerous. It's not a big change, but the real question is why? And why do our elected officials feel it's necessary? Well, according to Representative Stephen Holt, the purpose is to further enforce the principles of Western civilization and American exceptionalism. I mean, one of the many problems with this is that universities cannot operate fluidly to respond to the actual educational needs of students, our Iowa economy, and the country when our legislature has codified what these requirements are. Our universities are actually working to promote exceptionalism, not legislate it.
Agreed.
I mean, one idea that's crossed my mind with this is that our legislature maybe has no idea how to actually address the tough issues that are facing Iowans, and so they're focusing on social control. The rest of the bill bars courses from using any content that teaches identity politics or suggests systemic racism, sexism, oppression, or privilege are inherent in the United States of America or in Iowa. This is just very clearly trying to prevent people from thinking differently than our legislators do. Well, in the same bill, they establish a Center for Intellectual Freedom, which is a $1.5 million investment, but it has the same restrictions on the content that can be introduced. I'm not sure that they actually know what intellectual freedom means, as a side note, but I don't know. What do you think, Shawn? Do you think that you could use some government intervention in your educational standards?
Well, Emily, I think educational programs should be decided by faculty and teachers. Then again, I also think the director of the Iowa Department of Education should have experience in the classroom and at least a degree in education. The comment by Holt that Iowa universities need to focus on American exceptionalism is very telling. You know, when I think about American exceptionalism, I think about rights and freedoms. This and other recent bills, such as taking away the Iowa civil liberties from Iowans, run counter to the very principles they want to hold up as exceptional.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
They want to deny that racism and misogyny, clearly part of our nation's history, is not embedded in how our society operates. Stop with the I don't see color bullshit. My love of America means I want it to be the best version of it for everyone, and this bill is going backwards. Let me echo Amy Wickendall. This bill is a farce. This center is a farce. This government is a farce.
It's so true. It's all just theater at this point, and unfortunately, they're using words like freedom to misrepresent their actions. What have you been watching this week, Shawn?
Well, first, I'm happy to see House File 385, a bipartisan bill, address chronic mental health. It passed the floor. Bravo. Second, I want to remind everyone that House File 521 is still very much alive, and this piece of legislation would repeal Code Section 7287, known as the obscenity exemption. Now, this would be for accredited schools, public libraries, and any educational program in which a minor may be participating. Mm-hmm. As we said in the very first episode, Emily, there is a good reason why we have an obscenity exception for those places. It protects teachers and librarians from overzealous prosecution through a very subjective law. As it stands now, educators can use appropriate materials without fear a parent would take meritless offense. This bill would make it possible to charge an educator or a librarian who knowingly exposes a minor to what is interpreted as obscene material with an aggravated misdemeanor and on the third offense a Class D felony.
Wow.
If they go forward and remove this exemption, it will limit educational choices and do a really good job of making librarians and teachers not want to work in this state.
Right.
Contact Senator Salmon for more information. She is co-sponsoring this handcuffing piece of legislation.
Who's surprised here?
Not me.
Right.
Well, you know what? Sandy and House co-sponsors are also trying to leverage public libraries into not being members of the Iowa Library Association or American Library Association by removing their access to enrich Iowa funds if they are.
Why?
Well, because those organizations vocally fought to preserve access to commonly banned books that conservatives find objectionable, meaning they stood up against censorship. When I consider all the many, many bills targeting libraries pushed by Senator Salmon this legislative session, I am starting to believe that the Senator looks at our public libraries as the mortal enemy rather than a nexus of community knowledge and sharing. See House File 880 for more information.
It's so baffling to have so much opposition to the sharing of ideas and literature. Why would Senator Salmon fear letting our young adults and neighbors seek information freely?
Because knowledge is power, Emily. House File 888 makes some sweeping changes to homeschooling. It is really hard, Emily, to get a firm number of the number of homeschooled K through 12 children in Iowa, but it appears the number is going up post-COVID. The numbers I'm seeing right now are about 5% of students are homeschooled in the state, which translates to about 25,000 kids. So this clearly is an important bill. So the proposed legislation would currently do the following. All families that homeschool, that's all families that homeschool their children, will no longer need to provide proof of immunization or blood lead tests. You know, Emily, I don't want to see bacterial and viral outbreaks that kill children, but the Iowa legislature is intent on supporting that reality.
Wow.
Families who are educating their children through competent private instruction will still need to submit an outline of course of study. But the bill strikes the definition requirement of that outline.
Let's focus on our universities rather than our homeschool kids, right?
Exactly. So if you are homeschooling your children, I guess you can just go ahead and decide what that means. They're not done. They struck science and social studies from the list of required subjects to be taught to students below 6th grade. Just a reminder, the anti-science movement is still in full swing.
Wow.
And there's also some more nonsense in there about use of gender-neutral language when teaching Spanish and French at home.
Instead of legislating what we can and cannot teach and say in our own homes, maybe they could focus on the price of eggs.
Couldn't agree more.
$6.49 a dozen this morning in Waverly. What?
Some homeschool children in Iowa are dual enrolled, meaning they receive competent private instruction. That's from an accredited instructor, both at home and in public school. Current law states that children must receive at least 25% of their education in the homeschool environment under this dual enrollment. This bill would remove that number altogether, just take it out. I'm trying to wrap my head around the why here, but perhaps one takeaway is that being able to homeschool your kid for a smaller fraction of their total education will allow parents more flexibility to target a single subject they want taught at home versus in a public school. We'll find out.
I guess so.
They also put language in the bill that would prohibit Iowa's public institutions of higher education from discriminating against homeschooled applicants over any perceived lack of quality in their diploma. You know, Emily, I've taught some homeschooled kids as a college prof. Mm-hmm. They were smart and did well. But if you have to legislate against potential discrimination, you are publicly admitting this new deregulation rules you are proposing just might be opening the door for overall poor homeschool education in this state.
Right, exactly.
You know, current law says that no more than 4 unrelated children in an independent primary instruction homeschool situation can be there. I mean, no more than 4. They're taking away that limit. You can have as many unrelated children as you want in a homeschool education system. So I am concerned because there's nothing in this language about things like background checks. So who knows where that could go. Current law also says independent private instruction cannot charge tuition and fees for homeschooling. That would go away too. So with that change and allowing any number of unrelated children, I'm imagining a non-accredited parent who is operating as an independent private instructor opening up a neighborhood school of whatever size.
Right. Whatever size and whatever content.
And charging tuition.
That the vouchers will pay for?
Well, no. So I did look at Emily, an unaccredited parent who would charge unaccredited parent to charge tuition fees of this type in the environment is not supported by ESA vouchers.
Okay.
But
Yet.
So I looked into this. In 2023, Florida created a new program called Personalized Education Program. This program allows homeschooled students to get a voucher, and it's proving as popular as you might imagine, instantly ballooning the cost of Florida's voucher system.
Sure.
So I can't help but feel that allowing this charging of tuition in a homeschool environment is a step towards that direction.
Absolutely.
And if the greater majority of homeschooled children in Iowa become ESA eligible, by my rough math, it would add about $150 to $200 million in the cost of the program, pushing the overall voucher cost to over $500 million a year. Emily, this is a large chunk of expenditure without any audit oversight.
Right.
Yeah. Rules for thee, but not for me. Representative Samantha Fett and Senator Sandy Salmon are among the sponsors for this piece of legislation.
Just another doozy of a week in the legislature. And the second funnel is fast approaching, April 4th. So I guess we'll just have to keep a close eye on things until then.
We will. Be well, Iowa.
Thanks for joining us.